Okay, so we're going to look at the next section of Germanicus and Piso today. Just by way of a reminder, Germanicus has been sent off to Asia Minor by the Emperor Tiberius in command of the armies out there. And Piso has been sent as the governor of Syria, and it seems like his specific purpose for sending Piso is to irritate Germanicus. The last thing that we read, back up, it's a little bit further back up here, um, is this line here: Nota haec Germanico sed praeverti ad Armenios instantio cura fuit, is that Germanicus knew that Piso was being mean about him, yeah, doing terrible things, and that Piso's wife was being insulting about Germanicus and Agrippina, his wife, but it was a more pressing care to turn his attention towards the Armenians first of all, and that at the end of this section is what he does. There's a little break in the text that you've got now. Oh, just by way of interest, I've put in these extra pages here. So you've obviously got this section here where you can write a translation broken down sentence by sentence or phrase by phrase. But here I've given you the whole section and a place where you can write a complete translation in one go if you want to, or even if you're able to. I'm not sure if you can print these out at the moment. But it does mean that when you come to revise, because remember this will be on your exam next year, that you've got the entire text as a continuous thing with a continuous translation, so that might be easiest to revise from. Anyway, that's there. But there is a slight break in the narrative of the story now, which is summarised by this section here, the death of Germanicus. So he goes off to Armenia, and he manages to make some good diplomatic choices, and then goes off to Egypt for a bit, and then he returns to Syria to find that everything that he said should happen has been ignored, basically. So he's very upset by this, and he tells Piso off, and Piso sort of bites back and says horrible things about him. And the most important point about this is that soon after he returns to Syria and has this altercation with Piso, Germanicus falls ill. So there we go. That's where we're going to pick up. He's not very well. He's on. He's in bed, very very sick. Okay, so that's the situation that we find ourselves in. So we're going to start from obviously from the top, and it says Siwam Wim Morbi Algebat Persuasio Wainani are Pisone Accepti. So if we take that back to the top, Siwam Wim, Siwis is an adjective you should know, so it means sort of savage, and Wim as a noun is force or strength. So Siwam Wim is sort of the savage strength. And then Morbi comes from morbus, which is an illness. Um, so the savage strength of the illness. The savage strength, though, is in the accusative. So that's been put up front and to create a little bit of extra emphasis on it. So we really need a subject. Something is doing something to the savage strength of the illness. And it's this word here, persuasio. You might have started to get a sense that there's a whole raft of third declension nouns that end in o, and they tend to go o or onis in the genitive. So persuasio is the belief, the conviction. Obviously, it's linked to the English word the persuasion, but that wouldn't quite work here. So the belief, and then wainani is from wainanum, which is poison, of poison, the belief of poison, and then this word over here, this participle accepti, is agreeing with that. So the belief, the conviction of poison having been received, and then you just slot in the middle envelops this are pisone, from Piso. You might want in English to say the belief that poison had been believed. This is a slightly unusual use of the genitive here, but it's not that uncommon. But the belief that poison had been received from Piso, i.e., the belief that Piso had poisoned Germanicus. And then you've got your verb, algebat, was increasing. The English word obviously to augment. And then that gives you your accusative over here to feed off from that. So it was increasing the savage strength of the illness. So the conviction that poison had been received from Piso was increasing the savage strength of the illness, i.e. Germanicus thinks he's been poisoned, and thus he feels worse because of it. Whether or not he has, we don't know, and we're not told at this point. And then you get this rather odd list of things which serve to strengthen that belief. Et reperiebantur solo ac parietibus erutae humanorum corporum reliquiae carmina et devotiones et nomen Germanici plumbeis tabulis insculptum cineres semusti ac tarbo obliti aliaque malefica quibus creditur animas numinibus infernis sacrari. It's very big, but it's not actually that complicated because it is just a list. So, et and reperiebantur. Reperior is to find something. So, and it's passive with that unter ending on it, and it's imperfect. So, and they were being found. What was being found is going to come in the list later on. And they were being found solo in the floor, so that's in the ablative, ac parietibus, and in the walls, and then you get your list of what was being found. So you might want to leave your verb till the end. What was being found? Erutae humanorum corporum reliquiae. Reliquiae, you'll know, is linked to reliquus, which is from relinquo, which means I leave something. So reliquiae are remains, things that are left over. The remains, and then you can see that this is linked with erutae over here. So erutae reliquiae are dug up remains. Humanorum corporum. I'm sure we can guess what that means, but of human bodies. So somebody has dug up bits of body and hidden them in the walls. Talk about why this might be in a moment. Then you get another subject, a couple of subjects, carmina et devotiones. Carmina usually are songs, but in this context where things are obviously suspicious, it probably means something more like spells or incantations. So incantations et devotiones. Devotiones are curses. Probably enough to say about that, actually. Spells and curses. Et nomen Germanici. And the name, and Germanici is in the genitive, of Germanicus, plumbeis tabulis insculptum. Insculptum has obviously got something to do with sculpting, so it means to sort of carve into something. So in the name of Germanicus, and then that insculptum is agreeing with the nomen, carved plumbeis tabulis onto lead tablets, or in lead tablets, literally. Again, it's ablative. What's going on here? Well, this is a sense of somebody trying to create a spell, so they're using the remains of humans as kind of sort of objects of evil omen, and then they're carving Germanicus's name along with spells onto little lead tablets and burying them in the walls and the floor of his room as well. How anybody has done this without being spotted is something which we're not told. But in Germanicus's room, they do a thorough search of the room and they start to find these things in the walls of the room. You might have seen similar things if you've ever been to Bath, which I'm sure some of you will have been. They have a whole series of lead tablets which have curses and things on them, which used to be thrown into the spring there so that the god would find them and exact revenge on whoever has wronged you. Anyway, and found in the walls and the floor, in the floor and the walls were the remains dug up of human bodies, spells and curses, et nomen Germanici, and the name of Germanicus plumbeis tabulis insculptum, carved into lead tablets. The list isn't over. Cineres semusti ac tarbo obliti. So again, this still is relying on the reperiebantur up here to be found. So cineres are ashes, and then semusti is sort of half burnt, so sort of charred ashes. And they're linked with this ac tarbo obliti. So they're ashes which are charred, half burned, ac tabo obliti. Obliti is clearly agreeing with the kinares, nominative plural, and obliti comes from oblino, which just means to smear something. So ashes, half burned and smeared, tabo, again in the ablative, with gore. Okay, so we've got human remains, we've got spells, curses, Germanicus' name on lead tablets, ashes which are half burned and sort of smeared with gore, sort of rotting stuff. And then finally, a sort of catch-all, aliaque malefica, alia, other, so connecting with the que, and other, malefica. Malefica means just sort of bad things, literally, things which do bad things. But often in the neuter plural, you can imply objects. So, and other evil objects and other bad objects. And then this connecting relative, quibus, which obviously comes from qui quae quod, in the ablative again, so it's instrumental. So not just which, but other things with which or by which. And then creditor is going to lead us into our last phrase. Credo, I believe, again, it's passive with ter on the end of it, with which, therefore, it is believed. So with which it is believed, or by which it is believed, and a verb like credo is going to naturally then lead you into an accusative and an infinitive construction, an indirect statement. And there we are, we've got an accusative straight away. So, and other evil objects with which it is believed, animas. It is believed that souls. Okay, so it is believed that souls, and then you're going to need an infinitive, and it's right down here on the next line, sacrari, which means to sort of dedicate. Okay, with which it is believed souls are dedicated, and then this dative here, you can see the ibus ending on numinibus and on infernis, with which it is believed souls are dedicated. Numen, from which numinibus comes, is sort of divine power. It's a word which is hard to translate into English. We haven't really got an exact equivalent. It sometimes means just sort of a divine nod, an acknowledgement from a divine being that something should happen, but it often stands in for a god itself. So I'm going to translate it as gods here, but because it's in the dative, to the gods. So with which it is believed that souls are dedicated, numinibus, to the gods, and then infernis, well obviously we get the English word, inferno or infernal from that, but that literally just means sort of below, so to the gods below, and in this instance you might want to translate it as gods of the underworld. Okay, so we've got all these things here, and Tacitus is telling us that it is clear that they are objects which are usually used to try and curse somebody and dedicate them to the gods below. And well, what does that mean? Well, that means their soul is going to travel down to the gods below, doesn't it? So fundamentally it means they're trying to kill him. Good. I hope that all makes sense. It's a pretty intense list, and lots of stuff going on in there. We come back to the human world next. Simul misi a pisone incusar banter, quod valitudinis ad versae signa expectarent. So, simul, at the same time. Misi obviously comes from mito, I send. It's the participle, isn't it? So misus, having been sent. Here, it's in the nominative plural, but it doesn't have anything agreeing with it, which means that you need to imply a person. So I'm going to say something like those sent. At the same time, those sent are pisone, from Piso, and these people have been sent to check on the situation, basically. So those sent by Piso, incusar banter, again passive. We've had a number of passives in this section, haven't we? Unter, and again imperfect, so banter, were being accused. So were being blamed is another alternative translation for that. So at the same time, those sent by Piso were being accused. Quod valitudinis ad versae signa expectarent. Quod, so often is a bit of qui quod, but here actually does just mean quod because, and the verb at the end, expectarent, because they were awaiting, because they were waiting for. Imperfect subjunctive, so you need to get that sense of the tense coming through there, because they were waiting for signa. Signum is neuter, so signa is going to be neuter plural. They were awaiting signs. And And then valetudines adversae are both in the genitive, so they're modifying signa. Because they were awaiting signs, valetudines adversae, valetudines of health, but then that's being modified by adversae, of ill health, of poor health. Obviously, adversus gives us words like adversarial in English, so it means sort of the opposite of what you would want. So because they were awaiting signs of ill health, i.e. Piso has sent all these people there saying, oh, Germanicus is sick, go and have a look, check up, see how he's getting on, and if things turn bad, let me know. So they're sort of sat there going, is he dead yet? Is he dead yet? Is he going to die? Which is slightly suspicious. It doesn't indicate a positive relationship between the two, although we know they haven't got that ready. But it means that people are sat there thinking, are they waiting to report back to Piso that his plan has been successful? We don't know. These things are never actually clarified, but it's suspicious. Haec Germanico haud minus era quam per metum accepta sunt. So haec from hic haec hoc, these things. Again, Germanico is in the dative, so it's similar to the end of the last paragraph actually. These things to Germanicus haud minus era quam per metum accepta sunt. So haud minus means something like no less. So no less era in the ablative. Era is anger, so no less with anger. Quam per metum, than through fear, accepta sunt, were received. So passive participle, perfect passive participle, and the verb to be, main verb. So maybe something like these things were received by Germanicus no less with anger than through fear. This story I've taught a couple of times before, and this line always seems to catch people out a little bit. It just means something like he's afraid, but he's also angry. He's just as angry as he is afraid. He feels like he's been attacked by Piso, which he may well have been. So no less with anger than through fear did he receive these things. Componit epistulam. That's a nice short phrase. Component, sort of he puts together. So yeah, English word composes. You might want to translate it as he writes, but he composes a letter. And then another connecting relative, qua, from qui quae quod. Again, in the ablative, a letter. It's feminine, so it must be agreeing with the letter. He composes a letter, qua, in which, or with which, maybe in which might be better here. And you're going to need a verb then, which is right at the end of the phrase. Renuntiabat. Renuntio is to announce. So he sort of announces back. And it gives us the English word to renounce, to break off. Might be another way of phrasing it. So he writes a letter in which he breaks off, in which he renounces. Amicitiam is the object of that, isn't it? With that am accusative ending on it. Amicitiam is friendship, ae, to him, but more naturally in English, with him. So he writes a letter in which he renounces his friendship with him. This might sound a bit petty in the modern world, because if you got a letter from somebody saying, I'm not going to be your friend anymore, you might think that was a bit silly. But in the ancient world, in the Roman world particularly, life is lived through a sort of interconnecting hierarchy of relationships. You know, you might have heard of people talk about clients and patrons before. You know, and this idea of amicitia being friendship is not necessarily just a social thing; it's a political thing as well. Your amicitia is your support for somebody, you know, in their political life or maybe in their professional life as well. And this means that Germanicus no longer is willing to support Piso. So it's got more serious repercussions than just saying, I'm not your friend anymore. And by breaking off your amicitia with somebody, by taking that very proactive measure, it essentially says to that person, I am your enemy now. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. Their relationship was clearly breaking down through Piso's actions, but now Germanicus has actually broken it off, and that has serious consequences for their interaction. Okay, as usual, let me know if there is anything that you don't understand. Send me an email or a message. and I will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks very much. Bye bye.